Hello and welcome to another video in Zenatta Consulting's tutorial series. In this video, we're going to be talking through what you'll need to know to get started in using Zoho Bigin. My name is Tyler Colts, and before we jump in, I do want to ask if you find this video useful, please be sure to leave us a like and subscribe down below. That really helps out our channel and it makes sure that you'll see any of our future videos as we continue to post them. If you do have any questions or feedback on the video, be sure to leave a comment down below as well. We do actually read every single one of those and try to use them as a way to get even better at making this content for you. In this video, we'll kind of be talking through Zoho Bigin. Bigin is an interesting product in the Zoho suite in the sense that they do have Zoho's CRM. That's kind of like their flagship product, right? It's going to be where most people are going to end up having, the majority of that data that you would store, right? So all your contacts, all your accounts, your deal flow, but the CRM can do a whole lot more. And sometimes you don't need it to do all that, right? Maybe you just want a simpler UI and kind of a simpler workflow just for a way to track your deals, right? And so maybe you don't need all this crazy stuff under the hood and you're just looking for something quick, easy, something that has a great mobile app, right? And something that is easy to get your sales team to use. And so that's kind of where Bigin comes into the play. It is essentially a lightweight CRM that allows you to track your deal flow, store your contacts, all their various companies, run some kind of basic workflow automation and setup there. And so in this video, we'll kind of be covering general overview of the application. Then we'll be diving into how to do some of the basic customization, adding fields, setting up your pipeline. And then lastly, we'll touch on a handful of workflows and setups that you might want to do on the back end. So kind of getting started with the walkthrough here, where we'll actually go first is over on the left to this companies section. So inside of Bigin, the company is kind of the top of the hierarchy. If you compare it to the full featured CRM, right, you're going to have a whole bunch of modules up at the top of that, right? Leads, contacts, accounts, vendors, deals, products, activities, all your different reports, any custom modules that you've added. Inside of Bigin, it's a lot simpler, right? So out of the gate here, I've kind of created an example company, right? We can see that you're not tracking that much information about it. If you go and you look at the big CRM, right, it's going to have a ton of different fields on the page. This is a lot simpler, right? So we'll see on the company page, you've got their basic info here. You can associate any tags with them, right? Similarly to how you would in the CRM. Maybe I want to add a new tag for cool company, right? I can go ahead and just add that here. Over on the right-hand side, really most of the real estate here goes to these related lists. So it's going to give you a full timeline of everything that's happened on the record. You're going to be able to take any free form notes and kind of leave those associated to the account or company here. You've got your suite of activities, right? So if you wanted to set up a follow-up task or set up a meeting or a call, meetings and calls more likely are going to be over on the contact side, but maybe you want to do an account check-in, right? You can go ahead and make a task for that. Any of the emails from contacts underneath this account or company are going to show up kind of rolled up to the company record. If you have any social media information, specifically Twitter, you can kind of connect that in here. You'll also get a roll up of all the various deals under this company. We'll kind of touch on deals a little bit more in a bit, so we'll circle back to this. You'll have any of your contacts, right, that you've associated with this company as well. We're able to click through and go directly to that record. And then last but not least, you can attach any files that you'd like to each of these records inside of Bigin. So companies, really nothing crazy. There's just going to be a list of all companies that you have in your database. You can, of course, create some custom views off of this. So maybe if I wanted to make a custom view or a filter here for cool companies, I could add a tag and say, show me a list where the tag includes cool company. Right. So now I have this kind of custom view that's filtering down based on some information that I've provided. And so that, again, with Bigin, they try to keep it really simple. So that is essentially it with the companies module. Contacts is very similar here, right? So contacts is just a list of the people, right, that you're prospecting or doing business with. Inside of that record, you've got the core contact information. We've got a link up to the company here if you wanted to jump through to that record as well. Similar to the company, right? We've got timeline, notes, activities, emails, deals again, and then files. A couple kind of quick options here at the top as well. Quick way to schedule an online meeting, send an email, or kind of clone, delete, or merge any duplicates. So again, if you're kind of familiar with CRM, a lot of this stuff is the same as you're going to find in the flagship product. Essentially, it's just trimmed down and made a little bit easier and simpler to work with. So now let's kind of get into the real workflow management and the main piece that you're going to be using here in Bigin. That's going to be your deals records. So right now we don't have any deals. And so I can create a deal kind of from scratch here, right? Where I would choose the deal name, the contact, the company, what stage they're going to start at. More often than not, though, if you're using this system to do prospecting, you're actually going to start that process from here inside of a contact record. And so underneath the contact, I can open up deals and actually just add one directly through here. So I'll add an example deal. You'll note it'll actually automatically grab the company that contact is a part of. It's kind of a nice little quality of life thing there. I'll choose a stage that I want to start this at. I'll give it an amount. I'll assign when I think it's going to close. And maybe I'll leave it a quick description. So I'll go ahead and save that here. And so now we'll see that that deal will show up underneath the example contact. If I jump over to the company as well, it'll also show here. So you kind of get those layers of hierarchy in the system. And then lastly, if we jump over to the deals module, we'll see that the default view here is going to be your Kanban. This is essentially a way to track your deals progress through your pipeline, right? So I can move this thing left, move it right? If it kind of goes back in the process at any point. I can skip it straight forward to closed won or closed lost down here at the bottom, right? Similarly to what I showed in the companies as well, maybe I want to come in here and use some custom views, right? So oftentimes I just want to look at my deals, right? I don't really care about deals that other people are working. I really just want to focus on mine. Up here again, along the top as well, right? We can kind of decide how we want to sort these deals, right? Should they go newest to oldest, biggest to smallest, right? Do I want to see ones that are closing most, that are closing in the shortest time frame at the top of my list? And so you can kind of make those determinations in the system on an as needed basis. So now opening up a deal here, again, what we'll see is that this view is very simple, right? So if you're over in the big CRM, you're going to find tons of fields here, tons of options. This is a much simpler view, right? So over here, we'll see our related contact, we'll see the related company, and then we'll have kind of a similar set of, notes, activities, emails. The one difference here that you'll see with the deal section is this ability to associate products, right? So this is kind of like one of our little subforms here, where I could actually choose a product, a price, a quantity, a discount, and a total, right? So if you wanted to use this to quote out certain products or services that are going to be associated with the deal, that's actually kind of built into the system here. So pretty slick little interface. Again, the goal here is to keep it simple, right? We want to just move our deals left to right, really focus on the pipeline management and the kind of big picture of, our pipeline workflow. So you might be looking at these and thinking, well, it's nice to keep this simple, and, simple is better than complicated, but maybe I do need some additional fields here, right? Maybe I want to be able to track more than just the amount. Maybe I want to track what type of deal is this, right? Is this a deal for new business, or is this deal for existing business with a customer? And so to do that, all we'll need to do is actually go into the settings. And so we're going to go there now. Up here in the top right, under the little cog, we can open up the settings tab. Now, there's a variety of different settings in here. You've got your kind of basic user control, right? Being able to set people up as, users, assign them particular profiles. These are basically just going to determine everything that they can do. We can also adjust their roles, which determines what they can see in the system. We can also do some basic things of our own organization, right? If we want to put in our phone, mobile, fax, or our address. Inside of Bigin, you're not going to use this stuff that much. Generally, you're not going to make a bunch of documentation out of here, anything that's going to reference that, but it is there for you. But the big one that we want to touch on in here is the ability to add fields, right? And so adding fields inside of Bigin is very simple. So if we wanted to do something like our deal type, like we talked about there, down at the bottom of the page here under our custom fields, we can go ahead and add a custom field. We'll give it a name. So maybe I want to call it deal type. We can choose from a variety of different field types here. So if we wanted a pick list, open text, something that has to be a number, right? Maybe a lookup to a different record, and so on and so forth here, right? Date, currency, email fields. In this case, we'll do a pick list. It can either be a single select or a multi-select. For us, we're going to do a single select here. And we'll give it some options. We could also set a default value, but in this case, we're not going to do that because really we would need to know there's no logical default here. So I'll go ahead and save that. And now it's been added to our deal, right? So if we jump back over to that deal section, we'll be able to open up our deal and actually add data to that, right? So right down here, I can go ahead and click edit and say that this is new business, right? And so pretty easy and simple to add fields, right? Again, it's not going to be as flexible and crazy as Zoho's, full featured CRM, but you are able to do this type of customization and set up the specific fields that you need, right? To be able to track the data that you need to have. So jumping back over to our settings, kind of the one other thing here as, a core step to getting this software off the ground is customizing your deal stages, right? So our stages here are qualification, needs analysis, proposal price quote, negotiation review, and then closed won and closed lost. But looking at this, you might think, this isn't really how my sales go, right? I've got my own process and I want the system to match that. So underneath our settings and pipelines and stages, now we can go ahead and actually customize those based on our needs, right? And so in here, we can come in and edit our pipeline. We can rename any of the stages that already exist, or we can remove them as a whole, right? So maybe, the way that I do it is a little bit different. Maybe I want to make this proposal requested, proposal sent, right? Maybe I'll save that. And the other thing with these pipelines and stages is that you can actually have more than one, right? So maybe for a new business type of pipeline, I need to do qualification and needs analysis, right? But maybe for a existing business pipeline, which I'll go ahead and clone, right? Because I'm gonna use most of this stuff. But maybe for an existing business, I don't need to do qualification, right? We've already qualified that this customer knows how we work. They know the services that we provide. They have a reasonable budget to kind of afford the way that we do things, right? And so I can go ahead and create my own pipeline, right? And so essentially what this does, it creates two different versions of your deal flow, right? And then it just depends, right, when you're looking at these on which one you want to use for a particular deal. And so here we'll see now we have this new dropdown for pipelines, right? We have new versus existing business. If I flip over to existing business, right, there is no deals. There are no deals in this stage quite yet because we don't have any in that pipeline, right? And so this is an important piece of Bigin. It's really, really pipeline centric, right? So one of the most important things you can do as you get started is really think through what stages you need and if you need to have more than one pipeline to kind of capture what you're doing, right? And so different ways that you use pipelines are for things like, new versus existing business. Maybe you have multiple services, so maybe you do bookkeeping work. You also do tax preparation work, right? And so these might have different sales processes that need different people and steps involved, right? So you really want to take the time to figure out what these stages need to be, and if you do in fact need to have multiple pipelines for it. Now, just to kind of round out the settings tab here, a couple other options within the system. You can actually build web forms natively inside of Bigin that will insert data directly into the app, right? So if I were to go ahead and make a new web form here, I can choose, what I want to capture, right? These are going to all pull directly from the relevant contacts module. And I can determine where I want to put this, right? If we don't know, we'll go ahead and put stars here. I shall put Zenatta.com for this one. You can determine if you want to auto-associate a tag when someone comes in through this, do any double opt-in, send them an auto email, or submit them to an approval process. Oop, I think I need my HTTPSs. And then it'll give us the ability to drop this directly onto the website. Now, one of the nice things about these forms is that you can grab the source code directly and actually build any HTML and CSS on top of them that you'd like to have. So pretty flexible forms that will just insert data directly into the system. Workflows are another important component here inside of Bigin. Workflows are essentially an if-then statement that you can teach the system in order to automate certain processes. And so a common example of that would be, let's make a new workflow. We're going to base this on the deals module, but it could really be based on any of the modules in the system. Maybe I want to set myself up a reminder here when I have sent a proposal, right? And so I'll go to next. And so now we kind of have to start to build out our follow-up sequence. So what I'll do here is we've got a couple different options. It can trigger on creation. It can trigger on creation or edit, or it can trigger on an edit. We can also set it up to run based on certain date values, right? So there's a whole lot you could do there. A quick example would be 5 days or 1 week before the closing date. Maybe I want a reminder like, hey, this is supposed to close. It hasn't yet, right? Do we need to check in on this? For our case here, for our proposal sent follow-up, we'll go ahead and make this as a create or edit workflow. And what we'll do is we'll say, this should only happen if it's created or edited to match the stage is proposal sent, right? And so we can actually have multiple criteria here. Maybe you would also want to say it has to be in the new business pipeline, right? And so essentially, in English so far, what we've said is if the stage is edited or it's created to match proposal sent in the new business pipeline, then do these following things. And so you can do instant actions, right? Something like an email that goes out, a task that gets created or assigned, maybe an update to a field or the association of a tag. You can also do scheduled actions, and that's what we're going to do for this workflow because we don't need a reminder right when we move it to proposal sent. Maybe we want to do a reminder 7 days later, right? To say 7 days after we've sent a proposal, let's set up a reminder to follow up on proposal. Inside of this task creator, we can also add some merge tags. So maybe I want the name of the deal to just automatically associate itself with this task. We can determine if it should be assigned to the owner of the deal or to a static user. Most of the time, you're going to want this to go to the owner of the deal. We can choose the due date dynamically based on when this happened. And then we can choose if we want to notify the owner, set up a little pop-up reminder, or mark this as a high priority task. Now, with these workflows, an important thing to know is that if in this 7-day period, after being entered into these conditions, it no longer matches. So maybe this moves from proposal sent to closed won on day 5. This action will no longer occur, right? And so you can actually set these up in a pretty intuitive way to keep you on track, but also where you're not going to get tasks that aren't necessary if you've kind of moved forward past that process and you no longer need the reminder. So there's a lot you can do in workflows. This is just a quick example, but really most if-then statements that you can think of, you can essentially build out in these workflows using emails, tasks, and field updates. Now, rounding out our settings here, we do have a full data administration suite, right? So we can migrate from CRM or the contact manager. We can run exports of any of our modules. We can set up a regular data backup. We can check out our recycle bin, which is where any record that's deleted is going to go. We also do have a full audit log of everything that's happened in the system. This can also be exported. And then we can track any of our relevant storage, right? So this would be like your file storage, right? So 2 GB of file storage kind of comes out of the box with this tool. I will highlight that's going to seem really low. It's because you really shouldn't track most of your files in here. You want to have them in work drive or somewhere external and kind of reference them. But maybe we'll save that for a different video. Now, lastly here, there are a couple integrations that I want to highlight. So right out of the gate, it does have a comprehensive API, right? So we can build our own custom integrations. You can also sync your contacts and calendar out to Google and Office 365. So that's pretty slick, right? So when you go to send an email or you go to look at your calendar, everything's going to be synced up with your CRM. They also have a suite of Zoho applications, right? So being able to keep your contacts, companies, and products in sync via Zoho Books, Zoho Campaigns, right? We can sync over any of our records there to do some email marketing. Zoho Desk is going to pull in any of the open tickets related to these email addresses on the desk side. And analytics gives us the full ability to report on the data within Bigin. Now, what you'll notice is I saved the Zoho CRM one for last because it's a really interesting integration. And essentially what it does is it will sync your contacts, accounts, deals, activities, and notes between the two systems. Now, I put a little emphasis on deals there because this sync allows us to do something pretty cool, right? And you'll notice throughout this video, I've mentioned a couple of times that the full-on CRM does a lot more than Bigin, and that's by design, right? But one interesting thing you can do is you can actually sync everything between CRM and Bigin, right? So your sales team can actually be using Bigin, right? The kind of streamlined, simplified view of a CRM, right? With a much better mobile application. The Bigin mobile app is leagues better than the Zoho CRM mobile app. And so you can actually have them running a lot of their workflow in Bigin, but then having it all sync back to the full featured CRM for the rest of your team, right, to be working in. And so oftentimes that'll look like a deal gets sold via Bigin, it's already synced to CRM, and then we use that deal on the CRM side to kick off a fulfillment process through projects or through various other applications. So there's a lot of kind of interesting things you can do there to run your sales process kind of simultaneously inside of CRM and inside of Bigin, kind of getting the benefits of both of those applications. Now, last but not least, inside of the settings here, we do, of course, have the ability to sync in email services via IMAP, right? So Zoho Mail, Gmail, Office 365, or set it up custom. We can build out a variety of email templates as well, right? So these can be sent either manually or through automated actions. We can set up our email sharing permissions. This really is only going to matter, right, if you have IMAP set up, but you can set things up as either private or public. Email insights being on by default essentially allows us to track if an email is opened or clicked when it's sent through Bigin. So generally you want to leave that on. You can also add organization emails here. So this would be something like info@Zenatta, right? If you wanted to have a generalized system, oftentimes these will be used for your workflow driven emails, right? So something that's automated and it's just being sent out and you don't really need it to come from a particular person. And then last but not least, of course, there is email deliverability, which is basically a way to add your SPF and DKIM records. This just makes your email much less likely to go into spam when it's sent via Bigin. So as kind of part of this getting started, you always want to do this before you start using the application. You also have some pre-built connectors here over for Zoho Social, but really right now it's only for Twitter, right? So if you're not on Twitter, you can just skip that. We can plug in a variety of telephony systems to Bigin as well. Most of those are all going to run directly through the marketplace, right? So you want to just take a look over there. check if something is supported for Bigin, and then go ahead and get it plugged right in. And then lastly, kind of copying from the CRM side, they do have a system of signals, right? So these are basically your little bell notifications. If you want a bell notification when someone opens, clicks an email, a big one is if it bounces, right? If you send someone an email and it bounces, you really want to know that. Or we could also set it up to pull from Zoho Desk, which is pretty slick. So if a new ticket were to come in for one of your contacts, you could actually be notified about that even when you're just in Bigin. So an interesting thing to kind of check out and take a look at here under settings, just kind of customizing these signals. And so with that, I think we've covered kind of the main elements here inside of Bigin. It's a very simple CRM, really just focused on your deal flow, where you'll be adding companies, contacts, and deals, where those deals can move through a variety of different pipelines using a streamlined and simplified UI. Again, I would really appreciate if you found this video useful. Please be sure to like and subscribe down below. That really, really does help us out. And please do leave any comments, questions, or feedbacks down below in the comments section. We do read all of those, and it helps us make our videos better and better. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on our next video.